Little, the General Secretary of the GFTU, General Federation of Trade Unions, who will be giving us an address that he will be joining us online.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the General Secretary and to Napo for the invitation to address you this morning. My apologies that I'm not there in person, as I have been for the other days of conference. The house where I'm staying is next to the River Erewash, which burst its banks last night, and I've spent the morning dealing with sandbags and floodwater. So my apologies that I can't be there. But it has been really eye-opening for me to be able to join you for the past few days of your conference to hear about the issues faced by members working in probation, in CAFCAS, and the challenges that you face in your work and the support that your union gives you. I just want to say I've been in absolute awe to be alongside people whose work not only changes lives, but actually saves lives. And I think that's something that should be recognised by the employer, by government, that the impact of the work you do is absolutely vital. Hearing the issues that you face this week, some of them are unique to your members, to the skilled professional role that you carry out, but others are common to workers across the public sector and the private sector. Issues of funding, trying to deliver a service on an inadequate budget with a government whose priorities are all wrong. As a primary school teacher for 20 years, I know exactly what it's like trying to do that professional work when you feel that barriers in terms of funding and costs are constantly put in your way. On the issue of pay and the impact that low pay has on recruitment and retention in the service. And I was shocked to hear the other day that there is a 30% gap in probation officers in terms of recruitment. That's shocking for a service that is so absolutely vital. And I would have one clear message to HMPPS in terms of solving that situation: increase pay, reduce workload, and you will close that 30% gap. But that means real changes within the service, changes I know that Napo is fighting for. But of course, it goes much deeper than that. The other thing I've heard as a common theme throughout this AGM is that feeling of the impact that centralized control and the undermining of your professionalism has on the work that you're trying to do. And I couldn't say it better than one of your delegates who spoke up the other day to say that no one's life was ever saved, no one's life was ever turned around, no offending was stopped by the filling out of forms by a particular deadline, but it's by the face-to-face work that you do with people, changing those lives. And the more bureaucracy that's put in the way of that, the more that trying to hit targets and constantly jump through those rather than using your professional judgment, exercising your professional judgment to do the work that you know needs to be done. The more that that's the case, the weaker the service will be. I believe there needs to be a real change in returning professionalism, direction and control to those working probation, those working in CAFCAS, but also, as you've argued so strongly throughout this AGM, in returning it to the community, returning it to a community-based service. Now, as I say, many of these are common issues in terms of lack of professional control, in terms of funding, in terms of pay faced by teachers, nurses, doctors, workers in all kinds of spheres and sectors. We need a fundamentally different approach to the probation service, as you've argued this week, but we also need a fundamentally different economy and a fundamentally different society, one where professionals are listened to. And that means a change of government. Let's be really, really clear. We need to get these incompetent, rotten, lying Tories out of office as soon as we possibly can. But the change we want to see goes much further than that. Winning a royal commission, achieving proper pay for the skilled professional work that you do, rebuilding our public sector, dealing with the cost of living crisis, which impacts on all of your members and all other working people, and changing the relationship between workers, employers, and government relies on raising all of our voices. It's not something that can be left to the politicians to do. It goes much deeper than just what happens in Westminster. It's about reimagining our society, and that relies on a much stronger and bigger Napo and a much stronger and bigger trade union movement. So I commend you for all the work that you do here over the past few days, setting the policy and priorities of your union, and the work that you do in your workplaces, building a movement that can bring change, that does raise people's voices up and puts forward a positive vision of an alternative. Let's be clear, you can win change. As the successes that were set out at the opening of this AGM show, you have won change. You brought the probation service back when it had been taken out. You recovered it from that disaster through your campaigning work, and you won that. But there is much more to do. And that means investing in the trade union reps, the activists who build your union and bring members together to work collectively for change. Over the past 18 months, we've seen a resurgent trade union movement, a movement that's on the front foot. Action by rail workers, NHS workers, postal workers, education workers, and others has won real victories on pay, on working conditions, and on funding. More people are aware of our unions than were before and the role that they play, and many have become active in their trade union for the first time. It's fantastic to see so many young Napo members at this AGM playing an active role in their union. Public attitudes to unions have also changed. They've improved, and the support and trust as shown in all of the recent polls for the trade union movement and for trade unionists is at the highest that it's been for 30 years. But at the same time, our movement has failed to grow. Indeed, last year, the trade union movement recorded a loss of 200,000 members, most of them women. So how can this be when we've seen increased activity, increased engagement with unions, and yet we're not growing? And more importantly, what can we do about it? How can we take those people who've become active for the first time and turn them into the reps, the activists who take our movement forward, the leaders of the future? Now, I believe the answer to that is in education. And this is the mission that the General Federation of Trade Unions has set itself, to change the future of trade union education. We want to work with you in this, providing free courses and training to Napo members as a GFTU affiliate at our training centre in Quorn. We want to work with you to develop the skills of your activists, to take that pool of new and young members and develop them into the leaders of the future of your trade union and the future of our trade union movement. And we want to support you in your organising and campaigning work, working to build the future of your union and of the movement that we share. For too long, your profession, like so many others, has been ignored and sidelined by this government. But the trade union movement is here to challenge that. Our strength and our organisation is growing. And if the government doesn't listen, soon, just like the River Erewash that I'm next to right now, it will burst its banks. And believe me, I've been up to my knees in floodwater all morning. That is a flood that this government does not want to have to deal with. So solidarity to Napo. We will be standing alongside you over the coming year and in the years going forwards to build our movement, to strengthen our movement for real change in the probation service, in our economy, and in our society. Solidarity